There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't touch. 8 hours, an early night, no alarm, and it's still there in the morning, sitting on the chest like it never left. People who feel it usually assume something has gone wrong with them. Usually, nothing has. They've just been using one word for 10 completely different things. Because tiredness isn't one state. It's a category, and the things inside it have almost nothing in common except the word. This is every kind of tired there is, and why only one of them is cured by sleeping. Start with the only simple one. While a person is awake, a molecule called adenosine builds up in the brain. It accumulates for every hour of wakefulness, and as it builds, it presses down on the systems that keep someone alert. That pressure is sleepiness. Sleep clears it. That's the whole mechanism. This is the tired a nap actually fixes. Heavy eyelids, slow blinking, the head dipping. Caffeine doesn't remove any of it. It blocks the receptors adenosine binds to, so the pressure keeps building underneath, unfelt, until the caffeine wears off and all of it arrives at once. Everything after this one works differently, and none of them are helped by sleeping longer. The second kind arrives after a day of decisions. Nothing was physically demanding. There was no exertion. But by evening, choosing what to eat feels genuinely difficult, and someone who spent all day making judgment calls has nothing left for the smallest one. The popular explanation is that willpower is a finite resource that gets used up. That idea is contested. Several of the original studies have failed to replicate, and the science here is genuinely unsettled. Anyone stating it as fact is overreaching. What holds up better is simpler. Sustained attention and repeated choosing are effortful, and effort accumulates. Not a fuel tank running dry. More like a muscle that's been holding the same position for 9 hours. The third kind makes no sense until it's explained. A person can be exhausted by a day in which nothing happened. Long meetings, repetitive work, waiting. Boredom isn't the absence of effort. It's the effort of staying engaged with something that offers nothing back. Attention isn't passive. Holding it on a task that provides no stimulation takes constant work. And that work is invisible, which is why the tiredness that follows feels unearned and slightly embarrassing to admit to. It's why people leave an empty day as flattened as a hard one, and why a demanding day someone cared about can feel lighter than an idle one they didn't. The fourth kind comes from other people, and not in the way most assume. It isn't caused by socializing, it's caused by monitoring. Some people run a continuous background process in company, tracking how they're coming across, adjusting tone, checking whether that landed, managing the impression. The conversation is the visible part. The monitoring is the expensive part. It's why an hour with someone who requires no management leaves a person lighter, and an hour with someone who does leaves them flattened, even when both were pleasant, and even when the second person did nothing wrong. The people who feel this most are usually the ones others describe as easy to be around. The ease is the work. Now the one that complicates all of this. Because there's a tiredness that feels good. After a long walk, a day outdoors, physical work that finished. The body is heavy in exactly the same way, same weight, same slowness, and it registers as satisfying rather than depleting. The physical sensation is close to identical. What differs is everything around it. It was chosen. It had an end. And it produced something, which is the clue to this whole video. Tiredness isn't only a measure of how much was spent. It's a measure of what it was spent on, whether it was chosen, and whether it finished. The same exhaustion, in two different contexts, is two different experiences. The sixth kind belongs to people who never quite got to rest. The body has a state for handling threat. Alert. Scanning. Ready. It's meant to be temporary. It costs a great deal to run, and it's designed to switch off once the situation resolves. For some people, it doesn't fully switch off. Not dramatic, not panic. A low background alertness that carries on in safe rooms, on quiet evenings, with nothing happening. The tiredness is the running cost. Holding readiness is expensive, and it doesn't stop for sleep, which is why 8 hours can pass with almost none of it restorative. Rest takes more than lying down. It takes the body accepting that it's safe to stop. The seventh is the one people mean when they say they're burnt out. It's also the most misunderstood. Burnout isn't exhaustion from working too hard. It's what happens when demand never stops long enough for recovery to begin. The body handles load in a cycle. It floods, it braces, it recovers. Burnout is what that cycle does when the recovery half never arrives, which is why sleep doesn't fix it. Sleep restores energy. It doesn't restore the thing that's actually been spent. And people describe it the same way, almost every time. Not tiredness exactly, a kind of flatness. The work still gets done. It just costs everything and gives nothing back. The eighth kind arrives when someone is carrying something. Grief is exhausting in a way that surprises people, because from the outside, nothing is being done. But processing loss is real work. It disrupts sleep, changes appetite, and occupies attention continuously and involuntarily. Bereavement has measurable effects on immune function. The tiredness isn't a sign of not coping. It's the cost of the coping, which is happening whether or not anyone can see it. And this one has a particular cruelty. It arrives exactly when a person has the least capacity to explain why they're so tired, to people who can see no reason for it. The ninth kind is a trap. Too tired to work, too guilty to rest. So the hours go into neither. A long evening of scrolling or half watching something, which restores nothing and doesn't count as rest either. Rest only works when it's permitted. Someone lying down while running a continuous internal argument about whether they've earned it isn't resting. They're doing a second job, badly. This one is learned, usually early, usually from watching somebody else treat their own stopping as a moral failure. It's also the most fixable thing on this list, which is worth saying plainly. The 10th is the strangest, being tired by something that hasn't happened yet. Sunday evening, the week ahead. Nothing has occurred, and the fatigue is already there. The body prepares for demand in advance. That's useful when the demand is a specific event. It's expensive when it's a vague 7-day expanse that can't actually be prepared for. So the preparation runs anyway, with nothing to aim at. It's why a Sunday can be more tiring than a Wednesday, and why the dread is so often larger than the week turns out to be. 10 kinds. One word. And most of the trouble people have with tiredness comes from exactly that. Reaching for the sleep solution no matter which one they've got. More sleep, when sleep was never the problem. Then deciding something must be wrong with them when it doesn't work. Almost none of these are fixed by sleeping. Boredom needs stimulation. Monitoring needs company that doesn't need managing. Vigilance needs safety. Burnout needs recovery, which is not the same thing as time off. Naming it correctly is most of the work. Not because naming is magic, but because it's the step that stops someone applying the wrong remedy for months. And it's worth remembering the 5th kind. Not all of this is damage. Some tiredness is just evidence of a day that was spent on something and finished. The goal was never to stop being tired. It's to know which one this is.